What if the woman accusing everyone else of breaking the rules was secretly breaking the law herself? Because the moment Judge Lauren Whitmore opened that second folder, Karen Mitchell realized something terrifying. This was no longer about sunflowers, this was about survival. The courtroom had gone completely silent. Karen Mitchell stared at the papers in Judge Lauren's hands like they were explosives waiting to detonate. A few minutes earlier, she had been laughing, mocking, interrupting, acting like she owned the room. Now, she looked like someone struggling to breathe. Judge Lauren remained calm. That calmness somehow made everything worse. Because Karen had spent years intimidating people with raised voices, threats, and humiliation. But Lauren Whitmore didn't need volume to destroy someone. She only needed facts. And Karen was beginning to understand that, slowly. Painfully, Judge Lauren adjusted her glasses and glanced back down at the documents. "Mrs. Mitchell," she said quietly, "before today I assumed this was a routine HOA dispute." Karen swallowed hard but said nothing. Lauren continued. "But after reviewing your association's public filings during recess, I no longer believe that." The audience leaned forward collectively. Even the camera crew seemed frozen. Karen forced a nervous smile. "With respect, Your Honor, I think there's been some misunderstanding." Lauren ignored the interruption. "These documents show repeated transfers from HOA community accounts into a secondary account ending in 4712. Karen's fingers tightened around the edge of her table. "And according to banking records," Lauren continued, "that account belongs to you." The room exploded into whispers. Karen immediately shook her head. "That's not accurate." "Isn't it?" Lauren calmly lifted another page. "Over the last 4 years, more than $50,000 was routed through that account under labels including landscaping reimbursement, emergency maintenance, and neighborhood preservation." Karen's breathing quickened. "There are explanations for those transactions." "I'm sure there are," Lauren replied coldly. "The problem is, none of them appear legitimate." Karen looked toward the audience instinctively. Bad mistake. Because the people staring back at her no longer looked intimidated. They looked disgusted. For years, Karen Mitchell had controlled every room she entered. HOA meetings, neighborhood disputes, community votes. People lowered their eyes when she spoke. People apologized even when they'd done nothing wrong. But now, nobody feared her anymore. And Karen could feel it happening, the loss of control. The beginning of collapse. Judge Lauren slowly turned another page. "Tell me something, Mrs. Mitchell. Does your neighborhood know their HOA president has been routing association money into personal accounts?" Karen immediately straightened in her chair. "I never stole anything." Lauren looked up instantly. "Interesting," she said quietly. Karen froze. Lauren leaned forward slightly. "I didn't use the word stole." The courtroom erupted. A few audience members covered their mouths. Karen's face drained of color again. She had trapped herself. Judge Lauren allowed the silence to sit there for several seconds before continuing. "You've spent years accusing residents of violating community standards," Lauren said. "Yet these records suggest you may have been violating far more serious standards yourself." Karen shook her head desperately. No. You don't understand how HOA finances work." Lauren's expression hardened. "Oh, I understand perfectly." Then she lifted another document. "And this one concerns me even more." Karen's eyes widened. "What is that?" Lauren didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned toward Lillian Cortez. "Mrs. Cortez, how much money have you paid in HOA fines over the last 3 years?" Lillian looked nervous, being addressed again. "Almost $9,000, Your Honor." Lauren nodded slowly. $8,920, she corrected calmly. Then she held up the document in her hand. And interestingly enough, an HOA reimbursement transfer for the exact same amount was deposited into Mrs. Mitchell's personal account less than 24 hours later. The room exploded. Karen's mouth fell open. "That's a coincidence." Judge Lauren stared at her without blinking. "The exact same amount?" Karen opened her mouth, closed it again, then tried another approach. "You're twisting the records." "No," Lauren said sharply. "I'm reading them." Karen looked toward her attorney desperately. But even her attorney looked shaken now, because the numbers didn't lie. And worse, Judge Lauren clearly wasn't finished yet. The courtroom tension became unbearable. Even Lillian Cortez looked stunned. For years, she believed Karen simply hated her. Now something far uglier was beginning to emerge. Karen hadn't only targeted residents emotionally. She may have been profiting from them. Lauren slowly leaned back in her chair. You find this woman repeatedly over flowers, paint color, mailbox fading, and children drawing chalk art on their own driveway. Karen remained silent. And meanwhile, Lauren continued, money from those penalties appears connected to deposits into your personal accounts. Karen finally snapped. I worked for that neighborhood. Her voice echoed through the courtroom. I sacrificed years trying to keep standards intact while everyone else complained and ignored responsibilities. Lauren didn't react. That's your defense? Karen's chest rose heavily. I cared about the community. Judge Lauren's tone turned ice cold. No, Mrs. Mitchell. The room fell silent instantly. You cared about power. Karen stared at her. Lauren continued slowly. There's a difference. For the first time since the hearing began. Karen looked afraid. Real fear, the kind that comes when someone realizes their authority can't protect them anymore. Lauren glanced toward the court clerk briefly before turning back to Karen. Tell me about Greenleaf Maintenance Services. Karen blinked rapidly. What? The company listed repeatedly in your HOA expenditures. Karen swallowed hard. They handled landscaping contracts. Interesting. Lauren picked up another paper because state business records show Greenleaf Maintenance Services doesn't actually exist. The audience gasped loudly. Karen's face lost every trace of color. Lauren kept going. The registered mailing address leads back to a post office box opened under your maiden name. Karen's breathing became uneven. That's not. And the listed business phone number, Lauren interrupted, belongs to a prepaid mobile device registered to your home address. Silence, tonsilled silence. Karen looked like she might faint. Even the bailiff shifted closer instinctively. Judge Lauren folded her hands calmly. So let me make sure I understand this correctly. Karen shook her head weakly. Your HOA repeatedly paid a landscaping company that doesn't legally exist. Another paper lifted. Using money collected from residents through aggressive violations and penalties. Another page. And those funds were routed through accounts connected directly to you. Lauren lowered the documents slowly. Would you like to explain that to the court? Karen's lips trembled. But no explanation came. Because there wasn't one, the audience sat frozen. Some looked shocked, others looked furious. A few residents from Willow Creek had actually come to watch the case in person. Now they stared at Karen like they were seeing her for the first time. Not as a strict HOA president, not as an overbearing neighbor, but as a fraud. Karen suddenly turned toward Judge Lauren desperately. You can't accuse me of crimes in civil court. Lauren's expression didn't move. I'm not accusing you. Karen blinked. Lauren's eyes narrowed slightly. I'm observing patterns. That sentence hit harder than yelling ever could. Because Karen understood exactly what it meant. Judge Lauren believed the evidence. And if Lauren believed it, others soon would too. Karen's confidence was collapsing piece by piece now. But something else was happening too. Anger. Dangerous anger, because entitled people often react the same way when power starts slipping away. They lash out, and Karen Mitchell was seconds away from doing exactly that. You think you know everything because you're sitting on that bench. Karen suddenly snapped. Gasps filled the room. You don't understand what those people are like, she shouted, pointing toward the audience. They complain about everything. They break rules constantly. Someone had to control them. Judge Lauren stayed perfectly still. Karen's voice grew louder. They needed structure. They needed consequences. Without me, that neighborhood would turn into chaos. Lauren finally spoke again, quickly. And who exactly gave you the right to become judge, jury, and executioner for an entire community? Karen froze. The question hit harder than she expected. Lauren leaned forward slightly. Who decided your standards mattered more than everyone else's lives? Karen tried speaking again, but Lauren cut her off. You find families during holidays. Another document lifted. You threatened elderly residents over bird feeders. Another page. You issued penalties against children drawing chalk flowers on sidewalks. Lauren's eyes darkened. and all while secretly draining money from the same people you claim to protect. Karen looked trapped now. Cornered, exposed Judge Lauren slowly closed the folder in front of her. The sound echoed loudly in the silent courtroom. Then she delivered the sentence that changed everything. Mrs. Mitchell, her voice dropped lower. I believe this courtroom may be looking at something much bigger than HOA abuse. Karen's heart visibly sank, because she already knew what Lauren meant. And deep down, Karen Mitchell knew the truth was catching up to her faster than she could stop it. But then, something happened nobody expected. The courtroom doors suddenly opened. A court officer stepped inside holding another sealed file. He walked directly toward Judge Lauren, whispered something quietly into her ear. And Lauren's entire expression changed. The audience noticed immediately. So did Karen. Judge Lauren slowly looked down at the new file, then back up at Karen Mitchell. Her face had gone completely cold. Mrs. Mitchell. Karen's breathing stopped. Lauren opened the file carefully, and after reading the first page, she said 7 words that made Karen nearly collapse in her chair. Oh my God, there's another victim.